99.5.
Global 99.5.
Mr. Roker, what you say, man? Man, I hear you got some of them guns called the Super Soakers. Yeah. What's the prices on them, man? $45.95. And give me one or two of them, man. I can buy Peter Roker.
Good morning. This is Peter Roker, Global Talk on Global Radio 99.5 in Nassau, Bahamas. Good to be with you. Nice Saturday morning. Some clouds, but not that hot. I see a bunch of tourists on Bay Street. Everybody seems to be doing well. Good to be here. And I want my listening audience to know all of the great opportunities of accessing Global Radio 99.5. It's really a very impressive list of opportunities of knowing what's going on this radio station. Well, Global 99.5 FM is available on live on Facebook, YouTube. I think it's live also on Cable 974. It's also on www.globalradio. It's also available on Tune, T-U-N-E, radio. And it's also, you can also download 99.5 FM app smart device, okay? So that's really very impressive amount of opportunities to access any program on Global Radio 99.5. The phone numbers here are 326-0271, 326-0272, and my cell number is 424-0749, and that's all. The area code for all those numbers would be 242. And I do know that there are some listeners out of the country. They are welcome to call in. I know that some people who listen to Into Caribbean News been calling in, and also persons throughout the U.S., Canada, and I've also had a couple of calls out of Africa. So feel welcome to call in. My show traditionally is not so much call in. It's more so my dialogue, but you are totally welcome to call in. Now, this morning, I want to begin the show with talking about the hardship that some of our neighbors are going through due to Hurricane Beryl. And just want to say that I am mindful, as well as I'm sure the whole country and the whole region, in sharing our concern on our, reaching out help-wise, because I understand that the island off of Grenada, especially Grenada itself, I think would have had some damage, but the island off of Grenada that's a part of Grenada was severely affected, okay? We've been there, done that, and so we know of all of the hardship which is becoming more and more prevalent in the region. And certainly, I want to say that my sympathies, my feeling of concern is out there. Happy to see that our country has already responded in offering some help toward this unfortunate situation. Now, Jamaica, I saw something on social media that may not be what was happening in Jamaica, but Jamaica nonetheless has had their problems. And, as we reflect in terms of how vulnerable we are, we got to understand that this is only the very, very beginning of the hurricane season. And I hope it's not a trend. I understand there's at least another couple of storms out there brewing up. But I certainly hope that we can scrape by as we have done so in the last couple of years. I don't think there's been any major thing happening in the last couple of years anywhere in the region, and certainly I believe it's being totally recognized that we don't live in isolation. We live as a region, including the U.S., and I think that the plan toward being of assistance to any country, including the U.S., that is affected by these storms and hurricanes is a very, very good plan. And those who would do this need to be commended. Now, I'm going to move on to an article I saw not too long ago. It was a full page write up, I think by Felicity Darville, Mrs. Felicity Darville. And she was talking about an event I think happened on Cat Island that involved a number of, I think it was only women, men, as regard to men's health, particularly the prostrate health. Okay, and you know when we start talking about health, I don't think I've ever really dwelled too much on health on my show, but certainly we have to understand the implications of health difficulties and to realize that some of the things that are going on in our society that might be a little unequal. And when I say that, I'm talking about breast cancer. I'm also talking about men's prostrate problems and looking and dwelling in the history of this. I think that it is safe to say that proportionately, the Bahamas is having a lot more of this happening in our society than it would be percentage wise to our population. And it's not just good enough to say that the authorities are aware of this and they're dealing with it. But I believe, and I want to congratulate the section of our society, those persons, volunteers, professionals, persons who have really brought this out in the open, and they've done an excellent job of, bringing this out there. And certainly, I'm not suggesting that there's any lack of that effort. There's a lot of things going on, including this long article I just read in the newspapers, right? But we have to be more conscious of why this is happening. Now, the article that I read really went pretty deep. It was very candid. It was a very, very candid article. And I have to congratulate Ms. Darville because I have yet to have seen articles like this in our society that do not, that really is willing to talk, real talk. I mean, when you start talking about, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the word correctly, libido, Libidio, I think it's pronounced. When you see that being talked about, the repercussions of, say, prostate cancer, the repercussions of chemotherapy, it was dealt with very, very, very candidly. And I think that, well, first of all, Dr. Gregory Pinto, whom I have the pleasure of knowing as a client, the amount of effort he's been putting into this awareness. And I was our friend, Mr. Miller, how candid he was, how much information he was willing to give out in terms of his experience. And so that is really the true beginning, bringing something out in the wider society is really the true beginning of a solution, bringing it out there. And I congratulate those that made that possible because they spoke about all of the issues, all of, men, including myself, is deathly afraid of the doctor. Now, you know, I don't know what percentage is not, but I believe I'm a part of that percentage that is so doggone afraid of the doctor that, we keep it in, we are afraid to go have checkups. Now, I've learned along the way to fight this type of mentality. I've learned along. I had to learn it. I had to learn. I had to learn. You know, and so I'm happy to say that I've been able to get out of that category by a firm decision. But the majority of us do not pay attention to an ailment until it becomes a real serious problem. Now, I think women are different. I don't know that to be the case, but based on what I hear, I believe that the women in our society is more proactive as it pertains to their health, because you hear a lot of persons, let's say with breast cancer, being survivors because they recognized and during their annual or semi-annual examinations, they have recognized the need to have checkups, examinations. I think there's a very simple examination they go through, and it's a very simple examination man goes through. Now, I know, I definitely know that one of the options for men is not very pleasant, definitely not very pleasant. And of course, there's the blood, I think they call it PSA profile, which is more definitive for the man's results. And I also understand too, just recently, it may have been mentioned in this last article that I read, was that there's a more modern, non-intrusive method of man being examined for prostate, not only for the cancer, but for the condition. And from what I can understand, that the prostate situation, I don't know when men should normally take the examination. If I might remember vaguely that I think is recommended in the late 30s or maybe from the beginning of their 40th age or year. And simply from what I understand, it's the swelling of that prostate gland and the issue of being able to rather having the urge to urinate more often is based on that gland pressing against your bladder. And certainly the gland being more active or swelling is and could be an indication of other things too, And so, and not only in the respect of prostate cancer or whatever else, but I was talking to my son just recently. He's, young, 23, and brought to light the fact that your health is a gift. And every second, every minute, every hour, and every day that we can prolong our life is really our opportunity of being on earth, making a contribution to our society. And also pain and suffering sometimes is necessary, but truthfully, the further away you can stay from that, the better. So my personal feeling is to do everything in my power to be alive, but be alive in a way that there's as little suffering as possible. And I would advise that for anyone, okay? Now let's move on. The resumption of my show was about, I think this is my 5th show now, because Global Talk has been around for quite some time. I think the pandemic was an interruption. I had other interruptions, but I've been around for about Global Talk has been around for at least about 5 years. And This is my fifth show now, back on Global. I used to be on Global before. Now I resumed this about, I would say, about 5 weeks ago. And during that beginning show, I did mention, being a gasoline retailer, that I would begin to bring to light um, the history, or some of the history, of the gas station, the retail gas station business in the Bahamas. So the first show, I think I paid tribute to, I think, one of the oldest gasoline retailers I could have thought of. I know there was maybe some before then, but Mr. A.B. Malcolm. And so I dealt with that pretty profusely, as much as I know about it, in terms of him. I think my second person I spotlighted in my second show would have been Val Ferguson, that had the Texaco on JFK Drive or Ponce Avenue, across from I think what is now Customs area, that area, and right next to, it's now Rubus, used to be Texaco, but right next to the head office of that petroleum company. And I always made a comment that you could eat, if you had a hot dog which you bought in the shop and it fell down on the pavement, you could almost safely pick it up and put it back in your bread roll and eat it. That's how clean Val Ferguson kept his premises. Okay, he was a good dealer. He was a good retailer. One day, rushing around trying to run his business, he had an embolism, brain embolism, and died on the spot, I believe. But he was a good man. He was a good, hardworking dealer. And then I think the third person I highlighted was Porky Dorset. Of course, Porky just celebrated another birthday with a rush out. And he is a phenomenal person, not only in the petroleum business, but also in other businesses. And I was very proud to be able to highlight him and the others, because they have made a tremendous contribution to the retail petroleum industry. But I want to dedicate this portion of the petroleum, retail and petroleum industry, to an issue I'm sure the country is extremely aware of, and that is the plight that the gasoline dealers are having right now. And I want to, as of, I entered the petroleum industry in 1982 on Wolf Road, opposite Camp Road. I was a total amateur newcomer. I knew nothing about the petroleum industry. I was able to convince who was then Texaco to lease me the station on Wolf Road. It was a really seriously rinky little station. Took it over. They did some cleaning up and renovations, took it over, and quite frankly, made that my career. Now, I'm not going to go too deeply in that, because that's not the gist of this conversation. But just to say that I go back from 1982 in the petroleum industry, having gone on Carmichael Road and, had Roker's gas station along Bargain City Plaza. And of course, now Roker's gas station on Malibu Drive and Faith Avenue, coming hopefully very, very soon. But let's get back to the plight of the dealers, okay? The retail operators, fuel operators, gasoline and diesel, they play an extremely essential role in this country. There's no doubt about that. And whereas, I go back a bit. I go back a bit, okay? And I remember one time I was in a bank and doing a transaction, and one of the bank personnel made a comment that a person was so stupid they could not even be a gasoline retailer or gas station operator. And I, being one at the time, I had to stop and talk to him because I said, listen, my friend, you cannot begin to imagine how much sense and how much hard work and how savvy a person has to be to operate a gas station. And mind you, he understood. I mean, I had to educate him on the spot because, I would single out the petroleum detailers as being one of the most essential. When you see them operating under these conditions, running in most cases a 24-hour operation, handling fuel that disappears in the wind, go back to the fact that the fuel being, gas is gas. So having to manage that when you go and buy 10,000 or 5,000 gallons of gasoline, and a week later, you've lost maybe as high as 1-2% of that because of the evaporation, okay? Dealing with the motoring public, dealing with all of the requirements. I mean, it takes a phenomenal amount of effort to do that. There's no ifs and ands and buts about that. And, for a very long time, well, first of all, the misconception in a lot of cases is where people don't understand how very difficult it is to run a gas station and also to run a gas station based on a fixed margin. Now, from what our experience has been, that margin, a lot of businesses rely on saying 10% net profit, 15% net profit. The dealers are working in some cases on a 7 to margin, 7 to 8% profit margin. And therefore, it is a known fact that they cannot work on that. It cannot happen. It's like asking somebody to jump 50 feet in the air. And, let's put it this way. I know there was always a difference of opinion on having an open market mentality. And unless the dealers can be guaranteed of a margin that allows them to function in terms of making money, then that's a difficulty that's going to cause the country a problem. Now, people might think, well, you know what? If you can't make it go out of business, that's not the way it's going to work. That is not the way it is going to work. Because you need to, I've seen situations where the country is being faced with the lack of certain, business opportunities, where it has to go in the treasury and pull money out to make sure those businesses survive. The supply of fuel is an essential service. And as wide as that can be is what serves the country best. So what I am saying is that, yes, another option could be saying remove the fixed margin, let it float. That could be an option. But in lack of that option, then the other option has got to be to say that a gas station can survive on the fuel sales, providing they are selling a certain amount of fuel. So I think the margin increase is inevitable, and I believe that that business section of our economy. I mean, me as an individual, forget me as a dealer, but me as an individual have seen the contribution that the gasoline station dealers have made in this country, and a part of my show is being dedicated to applauding them for these efforts. Now, if you look back, you'll see the many dealers that have made the sacrifice being shot up, being robbed. And at the end of the day, I would say it has been the least of the, profitable sectors of the economy. And these persons are dedicated to providing the Bahamian public with something that is like no one wants to touch. It's like cleaning out cesspits. It's like doing jobs that the people try to avoid. Oh yes, if you have a station become available today, tomorrow, you might have 100 people trying to apply for it. But I've seen professional people, persons who are college graduates, go in this business and lose every penny they have or ever had. So it's not a very easy business. And so I want to say that this present situation needs to be resolved, okay? Needs to be resolved. And I hope that there can be a mutual resolve of the situation in the very, very near future. Now we move on. We move on to another subject of that happened recently. I may have made some comment on this subject before, but I want to go more into it. I don't know if we're doing time-wise. We're getting close there for our intermission. We have Jason right here, large and in charge. He knows how to handle things. Hey, Jason. And so when I hear that Peter Roker Super Soaker come on, I know that it's time to do my little ad and pay my bills. And I want to say something concerning that song, right? When I was in Miami the last time, this is now summer, and shopping around, I came across a store that had some really, really, what I would say, water guns, okay? Because my song, Peter Roker Super Soaker, is based on from a young man around the Carmichael Road area that I watched grow up. And when I heard the song out there, I knew nothing about it. But Super Soaker is like a water gun that, quite frankly, I've bought a few of those, and I would like to, what I would say offhand is that I did promise to do that or give out a few of those or a couple of those some time ago. I think not my last show, but one before that. But I'm going to tell Jason right now, Jason, I'm going to bring one of those to my show next week. Okay? And if you don't take it for yourself, it'll be available for one of my listeners. Come by and pick it up either during my show or anytime I'll leave it at Global, okay? So we're about ready for our intermission. Let me pay some bills. Come back and I want to talk about Africa. I want to talk about Africa. I want to talk about many things about Africa. And I would certainly encourage any feedback from my listening people, okay? Thanks a lot.
I can buy Peter Roker to buy me the Super Soaker. This girl think I's a joker. Take off her clothes and soaker. I go and buy Peter Roker to buy me the Super Soaker. This girl think I's a joker. Take off her clothes and soaker.
Hi, this is Peter Roker, Global Talk on Global Radio 99.5 FM in Nassau, Bahamas. Facebook, YouTube, Cable 974, WW Global. Radio, Tune Radio, download 99.5 FM app on your smart device. Numbers here is 326-0271, 326-0272, and my cell number is 424-0749. Now, I want to pay my bills now, so I'm going to talk about a company located on Ballard Road, off Faith Avenue, just when you come off Malabar Highway. When you approach the roundabout at Fire Trail Road, you head south, take the first left, that's Ballard Road. You can turn left to go into the yard or turn right to go into the retail store. Builders Discount Depot Ltd, BDD. Remember that name. I'm not going to give you the phone number because I encourage you to go down there and see what they have. Now, on one of my shows, I quite frankly was trying to remember the name of the gentleman on radio when I was growing up. I was a child, right? I not only remembered, but I saw it. But his name is Arthur Godfrey. Arthur Godfrey. And I want to say that back in the day of just radio, these advertisers didn't come on talking about 20% off or my price is the best price. They came on the radio telling you about the product, explaining the product. And that is what my advertising is more about. It's not just telling you how good a price it is or big blowout sale. These sales happen and next week they finish, right? So my way of getting the product across to you is really telling you about the product, telling you about the person and the people and the business that sells the product, okay? I think that's very important because BDD does not want you just for the weekend. They want you to be able to come there whenever you need something, become a part of their organization in terms of us giving you good service, good product, right? So let's start off with something that I think I want to bring to you, and that's tiles, porcelain tiles. They have just had a trailer load of porcelain tiles come in. And the porcelain tiles by the square footage is going for probably as little as $1.60 some a square foot. Now just think about that. Now these are porcelain tiles that can go from anywhere from $2.99 to $3.99, $4.90, $5.99. These are good tiles. Go see the difference between porcelain and ceramic. I don't think you'll find many ceramic tiles out now today because ceramic tiles do not hold up as strenuously as porcelain tiles. Now these tiles are coming in 6 inches by 24 inches, coming in 13 by 13, 17 by 17, and 2 foot by 2 foot. A lot of choices for you. And like I said before, they're going from as little as $1.67 a square foot. Now they also have the tiling strips, which I think is selling for like about $7.99. If I'm correct, that's probably cheaper than you buy it for in the US. And if I'm correct, you're not going to find any porcelain tiles in the US cheaper than, say, $1.99. By the time you put freight on that and duty and all that handling costs, it's going to go up to maybe up over $3 a square foot. BDD is known for this type of mentality because it is the outlet where you get your shingles, your architectural shingles, wrapped and unwrapped at a fantastic price. Now, there again, keep something in mind. Most of the pricing at BDD is based on pallet pricing. So, for example, the shingles they sell, let's just give you an example. Say if it's $29.99 for a bundle of shingles by the pallet, it might be $33.99 otherwise. Now I have a call coming in, but let me get rid of this call. Okay, that's okay. No problem. I got rid of that. So the mentality behind that, you got to listen carefully. If you go in and you buy one bag of cement, you pay. No, excuse me a second. Let me cut this down. Sorry about that. Oh, call me back. Call me back after 1:30. Thank you very much. Call me back after 1:30. Thank you. Let me cut this volume down. Thanks a lot. So yeah, so what I'm saying, and bide with me, bide with me. This is not a traditional ad, so don't expect that. This is, getting to know you ad. Okay, this getting to let's get to know each other. Okay, this is not these big fancy ads, blow out sales, 75% off. No, this is no gimmick. This is the real thing. So what I'm saying to you, that you go into BDD, our price on cement, white cement, and regular gray cement is based on a pallet price. You can buy one bag, you can buy 5 bags, you can buy 10 bags. But where you get your best pricing is by the pallet. On the shingles, same thing. Pallet price. You can get you can buy one. Let me say this to you. The one price is highly competitive. Highly competitive. But where you really get a good deal is when you're doing a pallet or more. When you're buying 5/8 steel, 3/8 steel, half-inch steel, you're buying more than one. I think their price is based on a 5 or what. When you're buying Gray Select, you buy 3 or more, you get a better price. So what we're doing really is catering toward allowing you to take advantage of volume pricing. Same thing goes for plywood. Remember, this is hurricane season now. Plywood is much better priced if you buy a whole bundle of 60 sheets, but you buy one sheet, very competitive. And so moving forward, please go down there and see what they have to offer. They're a new kid on the block. They have a full hardware store with all your nails. There again, you buy the nails by the box as well. Sheetrock screws, tools, shovels, rakes, hoses, the whole 9 yards. I guess we'll get ready. Hey, Jason, we're getting ready to go back to our show. Let the games begin, right? Let's go ahead, Jason.
This girl think I's a joker. Take off her clothes and soca. Should I get me a big thing? Should I get me a slim thing? I want a girl from my arms right now to be my big thing.
This is Peter Roker, Global Talk on Global Radio 99.5 in Nassau, Bahamas. Good to be with you. We passed the half an hour mark. We're now heading to the 1 hour mark, and then we'll be heading to the 1:30 mark, end of my show, right? Anyhow, talk so far about Hurricane Beryl, about men's in particular health, and women's, and we spoke about the dealers. Now I want to talk about Africa. I want to talk about Africa. Africa. You think about Humphrey Bogart, Casablanca. You think about Haile Selassie in Ethiopia. You think about Mandela in South Africa. You think about Tanganyika. You think about lions and tigers, elephants. You think about apartheid. You think about slavery. And you think about how this is pertinent to the Bahamas. You think about people saying, we are a black nation. What is black? What is Black Lives Matter? Now, I'm as controversial as it comes in terms of my thought process. And you know, when we look at this whole complexity, persons coming into Ellis Island, where the Statue of Liberty is, I believe. And now listen, when I throw these words around, I am subject to correction. But in this case, I'm saying that those persons, immigrants coming in, where the Statue of Liberty is in New York, that's where a lot of them came in. And so when they would get this rudimentary immigration checkout, guy from Poland, the man would say, name, Charles Kowalski. Okay, your name is Balski. And he just lost his name. Now this is a Polish guy. He just lost his name. He's now Balski. The other guy was charging. He just lost his name because he's now Mr. Smith. Immigration just changed their names. And we are so acceptable of that. We are so acceptable of that. Now, the gentleman called Malcolm X did not accept that. He said that his name, or the name he would have had from his ancestors in Africa, was not Smith, was not Roberts, was not Wilkinson. So he's going to call himself X. No name. I'm not saying today that everyone should go out there and see what their, if indeed Africa would have been their total or majority ancestral home, that they should go now and seek what that name would have been. I'm not saying that. It's very possible. People have done it. But what I'm saying is that we have got to be aware of a number of things going down, especially in the Bahamas. Especially in the Bahamas. And in the Western world, we have become so accustomed to accepting what others tend to be expedient in putting on us. And it's not only the people from Africa, but I'm mindful of either by a book, maybe Mitchell, one of his novels, right? Or the history or whatever the case is. But in Hawaii, whether it was a European or the European American who would have gone to Hawaii, and there would have been this extremely beautiful young lady, and she wore no upper clothing, and someone with this flea-ridden hot jacket would have taken it off and put around her to say that he is protecting this heathen. And of course, given her a cold or flu, which she knew nothing about, and also transferring the fleas from the flea-ridden jacket to her. And the import of the beliefs so when we talk about Africa, when I remember the struggle that South Africa would have gone through, now when you fast forward today, the question is, how are they doing? I don't know how they're doing. I'm not going to be any expert. I don't know. But I've always said that if you have one drop of any blood in you from any country, you need to be totally aware of what it is required to get on top. What is required to get on top? Because this is an Olympic race that we're in. We have to go for gold. We have to look at ourselves as human beings in the society that we're now a part of, and say, how are we doing? Where are we headed? Is everything okay? You see, this radio show that I have, you may wonder why I have it. I'm sure you may wonder why I have it. Every Saturday, 12 to 1:30, I love boating. Calm as the lake out there. I got a little small boat. I'd prefer being out there. Maybe doing a little fishing, whatever. I'm not a social worker. Okay? I'm not a social worker. But I am a human being. I have no ideas of grandeur, of changing anyone. But I feel that I have an obligation, because at the end of the day, I do not want to feel that I could have changed one thing, one little thing, and didn't make the effort to do so. Now, let me tell you something that you need to understand, that I have been a subject of victimization my entire life. My entire life, I have been a victim of victimization. And I have had the choice of saying, what the devil? Let me go along with the status quo. Let me go along with the flow. Let me go along with the flow. Why am I shutting my head off? Keep my mouth shut. Don't upset the apple cart. But you know, I can't do that. If I didn't do it when I was 19 years old, and I didn't do it when I was 40 years old, and I didn't do it when I was 60 years old, I sure as the devil am not going to do it today. But nonetheless, it exists. It exists. And so does the victimization and the disenfranchisement of entire societies, one way or the other. One way or the other. And the question would be, what have we replaced? And when you look at Africa, the winds of change. Now, I don't pretend to know the GDP or whatever of African countries. I don't profess to know, but I can feel that the winds of change that they would have seen 50 and 60 years ago, the winds of change from being colonized, having all their resources shipped out of their countries, and the fight that they have to go through, the Mau Mau in Tanganyika, for one, would have been like back then, these atrocities being carried out. Well, Kenyatta became a hero. And I sense that these family members of ours, whether full or partial, went through a change that is now culminating in Africa understanding the process of moving forward. And understanding that no other country can brag and be better off than their individual countries. So instead of people immigrating out of Africa, people immigrating to Africa. Now, I want to preface that with saying that you can point to Ethiopia, you can point to some of the countries like Sudan. I understand there's 700,000 people starving. You can look at Nigeria, you can look at South Africa. But the point that I am getting at, anyone with a drop of blood from the African continent must say and realize that they cannot be contributing to that problem, but they are providing a solution. And the only way you can add that solution is if you are doing well economically yourself. Economically yourself. And the question is this: are we doing that in this country? You provide the answer. Are we doing that in this country? Or are we saying, well, the reason we fallen in this, don't worry about we fallen in it because the other country fallen in that. And I would say that there should not be any country out there. There ought not be any country in the world today doing better than us. There ought not be. Now, am I being audacious? I don't think so. I don't think I'm being audacious. And whoever is out there aspiring for leadership or is in leadership must understand the need for every Bahamian to have the opportunity to do well and to be doing well, and not through charity, but through the freedom of encouraging entrepreneurship, for the freedom of allowing people to have imagination, and for the freedom of not looking in somebody's face and saying, oh, no, you can't do that. Because if I am an example, I'm sure there are many other examples. That's all I've been told all of my life. That's all I've been told. No, you can't do that. And you see, going back to the question of me having a show to talk at my own expense, I don't look for any advertisers. Okay? And it's not easy for me to pay to do the show, but nonetheless, I have an obligation. And it's not a big obligation I'm going through, Let me tell you right now. Many persons right now going and sacrificing all they have for what they believe in. And also for the benefit of other persons. But that half an hour went through like a doggone flash. Jason is now saying, boy, listen now. Let me go. It's 1 o'clock. Okay, let me go. I'm going back to the Bahamas right now today. I'm going by Peter Roker to buy me a super soaker. This is Peter Roker, Global Talk on Global Radio 99.5 FM in the Bahamas. Phone numbers here is 326-0271, 326-0272, 424-0749. You're welcome to call in. And we have a little, what should I say, intermission, okay? We spoke about Builders Discount Depot earlier. I'm going to continue on that because, that's a form of me, what should I say, having a little advertising to something I'm connected to. But like I said in the last ad, I don't want to give you the phone number. I want you to go to Builders Discount Depot. They are located on Malabutter Highway, Ballard Road, and Faith Avenue. Just when you come around Fire Trail Road, continue on Malabutter Highway, make the first left, and you make a right. You're right in the yard where the shop is. You make a left, you're right in the yard where all the materials are. But you should go to the shop first. Have a look around. Got some surprises for you because they have that mentality of looking for merchandise that you're able to buy at a much better price and configuring your buying for volume and doing things out of the box, okay? But it would be extremely important for you to actually go there because calling on the phone is not going to get you the same results. And I would really, really recommend that you go there, sheetrock, Durock, sand, rock, and they have a good rock. I mean, their rock is good rock. I think it comes out of Grand Bahama. It's very expensive rock to us. And so our profit on that is very, very small. And they have unwrapped and wrapped shingles. They have PVC pipe, good prices. They have rebar steel, good prices. Starters, good prices. Tools, nails, sheetrock screws. I mean, they really, really have a good selection of merchandise and they have good hours. Now, I didn't talk about that in the last ad, right? But just imagine, they open from 6:30 in the morning until 5. They're open on Sundays from 7 until 3. They're open on holidays from 7 to 3. So their motto, one of their mottos is here to serve you. They're thinking about you. I always say, when you do business, don't think of you as a person doing business. Think of the person doing business with you. In other words, you're a contractor. You need to get out to your site by 7:30 in the morning. You got time to stop in there, get what you need, and get to your site before the traffic really, really gets bad. You are getting off at 4 o'clock. You got time to go there, buy little odds and ends for the next day. So they're thinking of you in mind, okay? Now, also, people ask me about the new Roker's gas station. Coming soon, coming soon, coming soon, can't wait. And certainly it's been a long time, and I really, really appreciate all of the interest of people asking me about it, but it's coming soon. Help is on the way. I really appreciate your interest. Anyhow, back to the show, eh, Jason? Got another half an hour coming up. I appreciate those persons being with me, okay? Okay, this is Peter Roker, Global Talk on Global Radio 99.5 FM. On the last segment of the show, which will end at 1:30, is now 1:05. I'm talking about Africa. This is Africa. This is part 1. So this is not going to go away. This is not going to go away. This is part 1. And and it's not going to be organized in a way from A, B, C, D. It might be A, B, and it might jump to F. It might be A, B, C, and jump to W. So it's not really, you got to follow it, right? And you got to think about it. And you have to, it's meant to challenge you. It's about the Bahamas as well. It's about where are we? Where are we? Where are we? Okay? And the person out there having children, with children, you drive by and you see the multitude of young, hopeful faces. Where are we? Where are we going? If we're not better today in this country, if we cannot say that we are as well off as Singapore, I don't know how well off Singapore is. Never been there, but I know they have a reputation. So what I am saying, if we're not as good off as Singapore, something's wrong. If we're not as good off as Switzerland, something is wrong. If we are not as good off as Canada, something is wrong. Something is wrong. And if something is wrong, it has to be corrected. And going back to Africa, we have got to dwell on certain things. In Africa, where all of the minerals and all of the resources, and some of us would be 5%, 10%, 30%, 50%, 100%. We now have to understand is not to be patronizing Africa, but to be showing that we're not a bunch of people to be written off, that we have something to offer, that we're not persons just to throw a bunch of tennis shoes at, a bunch of branded shirts, that we ought to be creating our brand, that we are not going to be allowed to be our own destructive method. When I say that, right? And when I look at certain things around me, and I see the amount of qualified people, but then on the same token, I see the amount of persons only looking for jobs instead of looking to go into business. And when I do know that the vast amount of opportunity that there are for Bahamians and the difficulty they have to go through. Now, what am I talking about? Guys say, I ain't no problem. I mean, I can go to business, right? No, yeah, okay, fine. We don't need charity. We need the opportunity of being able to exercise our right, our imagination, and I don't see that happening. And I don't see where, I'll give you an example. I heard the government talking about medical tourism, about the legislation to put that in place. I understand there's medical tourism in Cayman Islands. A friend of mine, he had a procedure done down there, as did his wife. And that facility is by Indians out of India. Well, one thing we have in this country is a lot of qualified surgeons, doctors, whatever. But having or congratulating the government on this initiative, I would say this place ought to be teeming with medical facilities. Look at where we are geographically to the U.S. or Canada, North America, versus where Caymans is. So what I'm saying is that we need to be totally in, engrossed. I mean, totally thinking of all the opportunities that could be available toward all of these children coming out of school, high school, all these kids that are living in Canada now, coming back to the Bahamas, to being the best country that there is in terms of our economy and the ability of Bahamians to be truly empowered. Now, the way I'm putting this across, I don't want it to be misinterpreted. But I want to say that what I see happening is not the direction I feel this country should be going into. I believe that whatever it takes for Bahamians individually to put out that tremendous effort and be allowed to do so, to be able to convert their creations into something saleable, and to be able to grow more to feed ourselves, to be able to expand our mind and abilities to contribute to our country. I'm not saying it is not happening, but it's not happening enough. Now, when we look, going back to Africa, I heard by inquiring that there was an African Bahamian Association. I got the information on that. I'm going to pursue that. And hopefully in my next show, I might have one of their guests here. But having said that, Caucasian, Asian, Negro, whatever you want to say about the different types of Bahamian from a racial profile, not Bahamians, but the people in the world from a racial profile, we have to understand, first of all, that we are human beings. But when it comes down to profiling, we can not allow ourselves to be considered anything other than persons who are striving to be the best. Now, I want to go to a different subject and talk about entrepreneurship. I have a young man right now who is going to be doing something on Blue Hill Road in an old, almost derelict building, that he is going to be creating something over the hill. Now, in my opinion, over the hill is where our culture came from. I was able to go to Great Cliff the other day, and I admire what the gentleman, I think Grazioli, Mr. Grazioli, I think I may not be pronouncing the name properly, okay? But I admired what he's done there. And of course, I think his son is responsible for some of what's happening there. Or maybe now he is now maybe in charge. But what I want to say on this radio, on my show, is that over the hill, now don't forget, Great Cliff is on the border of over the hill. But over the hill is a gold mine waiting to happen. The derelict buildings over there can be turned into alive buildings rather than building little shacks that would be blown away by a hurricane, by a storm. There are buildings over the hill that can be easily rehabbed. And let me say to you that I firmly and absolutely believe that we are heading toward a tremendous problem with our tourism industry. And you may say, I got to be crazy because the numbers are up and all that sort of stuff, right? But when you look at the cruise passengers and when you look at what they're spending, it is not adding up. And when I say it's not adding up, it is a bunch of people coming off the cruise ship, walking on Bay Street, getting as far as Fish Fry, passing Junkanoo Beach, coming back, going back on the boat. And the spending is minimal. Now, there's some other factors involved in that. I'll go to say that I don't know if it still exists. But I know years ago, I was told that, and I'm saying what I was told, but that the cruise directors on these cruise ships are telling the people where to go, and therefore there are businesses that are being segregated against. That's what I made to understand. And that would be totally atrocious. But that's not the subject I want to discuss. What I want to discuss is this, right? I had said years ago that I feel that a section of over the hill. I'll give you an example. When you start talking about, say, Augusta Street, Hay Street, going down further past the post office, say a block, get a couple of blocks. And convert, and not the government spending money now, but get that, do a replica of what Over the Hill used to be like. And using Blue Hill Road as an example, we have the beautiful historic church there, beautiful historic park there. Create a replica of that. And where you would have boutique hotels, 4 rooms, 5 rooms. As a matter of fact, the young man I've been talking to with the building, he's hoping to rehab. Right away, he said, you know what? I need to put 2 rooms there. Good to go. And when you look at buildings that are made out of concrete and buildings that could be easily rehabbed, and Bahamians who are anxious and willing to occupy these buildings, that is the type of a venue that these people need to be going to. Because sooner or later, they're not even going to get off the boat, perhaps. They can say, well, walk up and down the road there. And of course, I'm not knocking Bay Street. Bay Street has been around for a long time. But I would say to you that the 10, the 12, the $13 million that was spent on Carnival could have totally and absolutely rehabbed 3 or 4 blocks of Over the Hill, and the government would have gotten that $12 million back. And we have to light this country on fire in terms of Bahamian entrepreneurial aspects. And it's not only the grassroots person, it's the surgeon, it's the medical doctor, it's the medical tourism for these people to say, let us exploit. It's the ability for the wood carving. I know the gentleman down in Red Bay's Andros who does the wood carving. It's for people to begin to rehab and think about genuine Bahamian souvenirs being made. But what I'm saying to you is that we need to start a different trend. The way we're going now is not going to result in anything nice. We have those persons, there's a big disparity. We talk about the cost of living. We talk about the minimum wage. We talk about NIB going up. This country has to get money from the outside, and we have the vehicle to do that. We have 9 million tourists coming into this country, 9+ million tourists coming into the country. A healthy amount coming by air, which stay longer, spend a lot more. But we don't need to be going on this trend. And we need to restart this effort so we can see that if it's 1 block of Over the Hill, it becomes 2 blocks of Over the Hill, it becomes 10 blocks of Over the Hill. Then all of a sudden people understand that this is valuable real estate, this is valuable opportunities, and it can change the economy in terms of the indigenous Bahamian and the vast majority of Bahamians making money. And I congratulate this young man because that is exactly and precisely what he's intending to do. But it has to be done by the thousands. But it can begin with 1 block. It can begin with 2 blocks. Because the disparity of wealth and income in this country cannot go along the way it's going now. People are at the gate. I'm not satisfied that the opportunity to get into crime is not an attractive opportunity based on what opportunities exist. You can't build jails big enough to hold people that are deprived. And when I say deprived, the government can say, hey, we got this going, we got this program going, and that's program going, but at the end of the day, it's like with Bahamians, myself included, all they need is that little spark. Then all of a sudden, hey, you did this, I can do that too. Okay? And that is what creates that fever of development that not only the country needs, not only Nassau needs, but each and every island. Because when you start talking about different islands, it's the same. They have a very small population, but now would be the time now for those tourists going there to be able to understand that old building that should be a historical heritage site has been now taken by an entrepreneur who would go in there and rehab it and develop it into something that is a tourist attraction rather than building a little shack along the side of the road. So, in other words, we have to move ahead with a plan that would open up the entrepreneurial efforts to let the people move ahead in a more of a survival mode in creating their own income. Now it's 3 minutes before the show ends. I want to say that was part one about Africa. It will be coming back. I would hope that somewhere along the way, we would have more. Maybe I might have a guest next week. But the question of where we're going right now has to be looked at. It can be taken very lightly. It can be taken extremely lightly of me as an individual Bahamian saying that I have suffered victimization my entire life. If I remember, starting 19 years old, that can be taken very lightly. But for me to say that should not be taken very lightly because of the fact that if I have been victimized, I am only one person. And therefore, when you put that to our population, how many other persons have been victimized? And for the last minute of my show, I want to say to you, I started off saying why I have the show in some respect, right? But one of the biggest respects why I have the show is because I have had many, many, many people come to me and say that they gain something by it. If I have inspired one person on my show, the effort is worth it. I want to thank you for joining me today. And hopefully next week will be another time for me to get an opportunity to communicate with you. This is Peter Roker, Global Talk on Global Radio, 99.5 FM in Nassau, Bahamas. Thank you very much.
Peter Roker, to buy me a super soaker. This girl think I's a joker. Take off her clothes and soaker. Should I get me a big thing? Should I get me a slim thing? I want a girl from Bahamas right now to be my victim. I don't want them too fat. I don't want them too slim. I want them nice and bright and real good look like them tree limb. I've dated a Jamaican. I've dated me a Haitian. I'm going back to the Bahamas right now to date a Bahamian. I'm going by Peter Roker to buy me a super soaker. This girl think I's a joker. Take off her clothes and soaker. I go in my Peter Roker. Let's go buy me a super soaker. This girl think I's a joker. Take off her clothes and soaker.
Global 99.